sister?
I go by just about anything. Except maybe Weather Girl.
Yeah, Weather
Oh, I wouldn't
Girl's
like
not
that
so
either.
No.
good. Weather Girl's not so good.
Yeah.
We'll throw down on your behalf if we have to.
Dubeck must be your married name, huh?
It is. It is.
I've not seen that before.
Now you're in the know.
Now I'm in the know. How long have you been in Indianapolis?
Oh gosh. Working.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've been back home almost 19 years. I go by Luke, who was about 6 weeks old when we moved back, and he will be 19 on May 9th. Fun story. My dad, who is a Kiwanis member, was kind enough to come out to Sacramento because we had 2 cats and a new baby to move home. So we, yeah, he bought obviously a 2-way ticket, but we bought 1-way tickets from Oakland to Indy. And let's see, he had a cat, Mark had a cat, and I had Luke on the airplane. On the airplane coming back.
And now we have a cat called Pumpkin. That's
yes.
our neighborhood
Pumpkin.
cat. Yes.
Yes. Pumpkin might be my dad's favorite child at this point. Pumpkin the cat. Mm-hmm.
I think it's funny that he, when he's gone, he has the TV turned on to Fox News for his cat.
I told you, it's his favorite child.
Well, I told him I was going to change it to CNN.
Oh, don't do that.
You and I share something in common, Angela, which I've mentioned to you before, but Adam Krent is my son's best friend and best man at his wedding. And I know when you two worked together, you really enjoyed working together.
Yes, I am still a big fan. And he and his, or myself and his wife keep up on Facebook.
Oh, well, good.
Yes, so they have a daughter that's a senior, I believe, graduating this year from high school.
I have a good friend whose daughter graduated from IU in journalism, and I sent her down to talk to, I call him AJ, but I know everybody calls him Adam, about it. But she didn't need his, apparently didn't need his advice, because right out of school, she went out to San Francisco, where she was a producer for the CBS station out there. And after 3 years, she's now moved to WABC in New York as a producer. So
no,
yeah,
she needs his help.
She's got quite a career.
Well, I think I'm going to get us going. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to our Kiwanis Zoom meeting. I hope you're doing well and staying positive. These continue to be challenging times, but I remain
Simply press and hold the space bar. There you go.
I remain
I'm sorry, say that again.
It's unmuted.
It is unmuted now?
Yeah, if everybody can mute for now, that'd be great as we go through the agenda. But again, hope everyone is doing well and staying positive here as we progress through this challenging time. And before I introduce our main speaker, I'm just going to go through a couple items here on the agenda. Let's see. A reminder that Giving Tuesday is on May 5th, and I hope you'll consider a gift to the Kiwanis Foundation. If you're feeling stir crazy, which I have been with my 2 young children, there are plenty of opportunities for remote and in-person learning. We've got a link to that on in the Kiwanis newsletter, which Taylor and Tina continue to do a great job on. Or if you can't find that, send me an email and I'll send that to you. Unfortunately, as you know, the Kiwanis International Convention set to be here in Indianapolis has been canceled. And we've also had to cancel our June 16th golf outing. And we are canceling all meetings up through May 28th. We're going to monitor the governor and the state's recommendations and then make some decisions about May 28th moving forward. And all new member dues have been postponed until October the 1st, and we'll keep communications going. We will continue with our Zoom meetings. Next week is one of our Kiwanis Connection or networking meetings. Following that, we've got a colleague of mine, Jim Lemoyne from the University of Buffalo, who's going to speak to us on servant leadership. And following Jim on the 21st, we're going to have our international vice president of Kiwanis speak to us. So, and then I'm also pleased to report we've got a brand new member, Max Harper, a colleague of mine at Butler. I told him when we hired him, a stipulation was to work hard, raise money for Butler, and join Kiwanis. And so he's done so, so I'm pleased to report that. It is now an honor I'm going to turn it over to Dan to introduce our speaker, and that is Angela Buchman. We are honored to have her here. She's a SkyTrak Channel 13 meteorologist, so I'll turn it over for the introduction.
Is Dan with us yet?
Maybe he went to the dentist already.
Yeah.
I got a text from Mom that they were going to the dentist at some point today.
Oh, no.
Well, I'm happy to do the introduction in the interim, if that's okay.
Yes, or I can introduce myself if you don't feel like it. It's all good.
Let me do it because I find people are too modest when they introduce themselves.
Okay.
So, meteorologist Angela Buchman joined the SkyTrak 13 weather team in September of 2013. She's a 1990 graduate of Hamilton Southeastern High School. And from there, she went to Indiana University to pursue a degree in business. This was not her passion, however. Weather was her passion. At the urging of her parents, she called Chuck Lofton, who advised her to change her major. She did and graduated not from IU, from a rival Purdue University with a degree in atmospheric science. And while at Purdue, she worked for the National Weather Service in Indianapolis. Her first TV assignment was at WLFI in West Lafayette. From there, she spent four years forecasting the weather in Sacramento, which seems boring because it doesn't seem to rain there or not have the same turbulent storms we have, but maybe she'll correct me there. She returned home to Central Indiana in 2001. And this is the part I'm sure she would not have mentioned, but she's earned 5 Emmy Awards. And she and her husband, Mark, have 2 children, Luke and Grace, and she loves them, Central Indiana, and the weather. So, Angela, we're honored to have you. We appreciate your time, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
You got it. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I probably would have skipped the Emmy part. Not the children or the Mark part, and they're, yikes, not children anymore. So enjoy your young children while you've got them, because mine are soon to be 17 and 19. Luke is a freshman at Purdue, taking finals. He's got 1 today and a bio lab practical. And then I think he's got 3 finals next week, all from home in these crazy times. I thought I'd talk a little bit about severe weather and some of the improvements that we've had to some of the software with our own radar. I'll go through the presentation pretty quickly, and then if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We do live at probably, I always say, the best place for weather. We're kind of in the middle part of the country, so we get all kinds of weather. I always try to stump kids at school talks. What kind of weather don't we get? Well, they always know it's hurricanes. But even sometimes we can get the leftovers from hurricanes. So it's always fascinating to see what kind of weather that we get. And before we get started, I'll let you in on a little secret. We're not always right. And that was kind of the first thing I learned at Purdue. Weather is an inexact science. So there are equations to figure it out, but there are too many unknowns to fill in all of the pieces of the weather puzzle. So it always makes it always a challenge to figure out if we can figure out what the weather is actually going to do. Tornadoes probably our most immediate weather and most severe weather when we do get them. And they're interesting. Obviously, a funnel cloud isn't a tornado. A funnel cloud is just that. It's a cloud, technically not a tornado until we have it actually reaching the ground. I have been lucky enough never to have been in a tornado. I'm kind of crazy that that's the case. But most of the time I'm in the studio, obviously, covering them. And there are lots of myths surrounding tornadoes in particular, that they don't occur in the winter, and that's incorrect. In our state, we've had a tornado reported in every month of the year, including December, January, and even February. In fact, I remember on one occasion, we had tornadoes one day and snow on the ground the next. So when I say we live in the best place for weather, that kind of sums it up. Another one, tornadoes never hit the same place twice, also a myth. Xenia, Ohio was hit by a couple of tornadoes, one in 1974 and the other just a couple of years ago. Our last myth, tornadoes never hit big cities. Also not true. Miami, Salt Lake City, Dallas, Fort Worth, all have been hit by tornadoes. And most recently, we had tornadoes near Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm gonna play this clip. So let me know if you have any technical difficulties. You might need to turn up the sound on your computer or your device to hear it. But this will kind of show some of the new material, new software that we have with our radar system, and then we'll kind of go in depth after the video.
We want to show you what this looked like when those storms rolled through.
And we're going to back up radar to 1:30 this morning, Nashville time. Obviously, they were dealing with storms, but some of our enhanced abilities with the radar to pinpoint where the rotation is. And we can do that with this little circle. That shear marker shows the rotation, also being detected just to the southwest of that shear marker. One other thing with this intense storm is what you see just southwest of that circle is what we call a debris ball.
What is a debris ball?
A debris ball is basically that debris being blown up in the air thanks to this tornado.
Okay.
And so the debris ball was visible on radar. What other thing we noticed, Scott, is as we take this radar 3D or three-dimensional, you can see the debris being blown off to the east with this storm.
And this is a huge area that you're talking about.
It is a huge area. It wasn't just developing west of Nashville and then obviously traveled north side and hit the east side of Nashville, but check out all of these communities near and around Nashville from about 1:30 in the morning to 3 a.m. This again is that rotation tracker showing all of the rotation with this tornado, and unfortunately a lot of damage as we've seen the pictures.
And all of this happening in the middle of the night as people are sleeping.
And we know from being in Indiana that is the worst time to have a tornado happen because it leads to the fatalities. But do know, when and if we have situations like this, we have this ability to show you to help keep you safe.
This really helps, I think, our viewers understand what is happening, certainly in Tennessee, and what possibly could happen here in Indiana.
And we've got you covered.
All right, Angela, thanks.
And interesting, Doppler radar was a huge advancement in tracking weather, very much like satellites were way back in the day. And they made some changes to Doppler radar, 10, 15 years or so ago, instead of just being able to see in the horizontal. So the radar makes a sweep and it's basically gives the output of what it sees, whether it be rain, heavy rain, snow. But now that we have the ability to not only see in the horizontal, but the vertical, that gives us the ability to see, especially in a tornado situation, what actually is flying through the air in the vertical that may be in the form of debris. And I think I've got another slide about debris ball and the shear marker and that shear tracker that I was talking about toward the end of the presentation. A lot of people forget what's a watch, what's a warning. A watch means we're just kind of watching to see what develops. The atmosphere is kind of set up for severe weather. And then once a warning is issued, that means severe weather is happening. You need to put your safety plan into place. A warning sometimes can come from a visual. We've actually spotted a tornado, or something that we actually see on radar in the form of rotation. So a lot of the tornado warnings that come from the National Weather Service are radar indicated. And I always kind of find it funny when people get angry that we've interrupted their program and it ends up not being a tornado. I'm always better safe than sorry. And if we have the advancements in radar to warn people before that tornado actually is on the ground in the form of a tornado, we can see the rotation in the cloud, I'd much rather get them a little extra warning so they've got time. Obviously, for safety purposes, the basement is the safest part. When we talk about rotation and a storm that might be radar indicated, this is what we're looking for. So we turn it from showing typical rain, where the heaviest rain is falling, to velocities. And so what the radar is measuring is direction. So raindrops going to the radar, raindrops going away from the radar. And if they get close together, that red and green close together, we know we've got rotation. Doesn't always necessarily mean there's a tornado, but in this case,
Montgomery
there was.
County. You can see, in fact, I wouldn't be shocked if this thing might be on the ground right now, just south of Crawfordsville, west of Mace and Whitesville. Now, east of 231 is where we're getting the signature there. They see the red is the outbound wind and the green next to each other, that's the inbound. So that would be where we have the tightest circulation. That's going to be right in this area right here is where the storm's rotating. This is moving.
And in fact, that one was on the ground that day. And we tracked several tornadoes that day. This one, thankfully, was in an open field. And I believe Chuck Lofton was out in the tracker van that day spotting the tornadoes. So that was a pretty active day for us. How tornadoes form, the formation that kind of gets them going, you really have to have a perfect atmosphere. And by perfect atmosphere, it really has to do with wind and wind direction. Winds coming from several different directions as you go up in the atmosphere. So for us, a good south wind, bringing in warmth, bringing in moisture, bringing in instability. And then once you go up in the atmosphere, as those winds start to change direction, it automatically kind of sets up that rotation. So as those winds change direction in the upper levels, then sometimes we can get that spin already going in the cloud cover. And then eventually, again, if the atmosphere is just right, we'll get that rotation that's just horizontal, that might be in the form of a funnel cloud, but then turns it into that vertical that then may produce a tornado. And that's when we start to see damage. Luckily for central Indiana, most of our tornadoes are on the weak side of things. We measure tornadoes with the enhanced Fujita scale from EF0 to EF5, and most of ours are in that EF0, EF1 range. And I'll just let this play a little bit. So I think you can see from this animation, a lot goes in to getting a tornado to form, which is the reason most of our thunderstorms don't produce tornadoes. We average somewhere between 20 and 25 tornadoes in our state for an entire year. Three-dimensional radar, that's one of the enhancements that I showed you just a few minutes ago. And it, again, gives us just kind of the ability to show the storm structure, especially if we're on in long coverage, kind of makes it a little more interesting, but especially in a debris situation like that example in Nashville, we could actually see the debris where the tornado was and the debris being blown away from the tornado itself. Shear rate is another one that if we get into tornado coverage on Channel 13, you'll hear us and we'll be showing you it. The new enhancements in our radar software kind of give us the ability to make it easier for folks to understand, okay, this is where the greatest shear is, and you have to have shear in the atmosphere to have a tornado. So this would be an example of where we've got rotation, and I think it just makes it easier for people at home to say or be able to see, okay, this is what's going on. This is where that better chance for a tornado actually is. And this is actually from a few weeks ago. We haven't had any big severe weather event locally recently, which I'm thankful for. But this one was a tornado that was just across the state line in eastern Illinois. And again, the shear marker just kind of gives us another way to show people this is where the tornado is. And then we're able to track it out in time and let folks know where it's actually going to go next. And that's it. I promised I'd save time for questions, and I'm happy to. So just either chat or shoot them my way. I'm happy to participate.
When I had a chance to hear you before, and somebody asked the question you always get, how come you're wrong? Your answer.
That's my favorite.
Your answer I thought was very good, and one that I would share. You pointed out that you're broadcasting to maybe a 50 to 100 mile radius. So if you say there's going to be a shower, there may well be showers in that area, but not where the questioner was.
Yes, and my husband is guilty of using a weather app and the wrong weather app, not my weather app. And seeing for perhaps a certain day, oh, there's a 60% chance of rain. Well, most folks don't know that 60% chance of rain means 6/10 coverage. So if you take our entire coverage area, a 60% chance of rain means maybe 6/10 of that area will be covered. The other 4/10 won't be covered. So you kind of have to take the apps with a grain of salt. And we always try to, if you really have something important going on, we always try to put FutureTrack on the website or grab little examples and put them in the weather blog so that you can actually play it through time and say, okay, I'm golfing at 2 o'clock, or I have a graduation party at 3 p.m. This is what forecast radar is supposed to look like. And if it's kind of spotty, there's really no reason to cancel any plans. And do I need to hit the chat? Taylor, are you doing that? Should I hit it?
Go ahead. Go ahead and hit the chat.
Okay.
I will say one thing that my wife makes fun of me for. Every time she says something about the weather said it was going to be a 60% chance of rain, I always tell her there's a 40% chance it won't. Contractor told me that once.
Yeah, I just, the percentages I think give people a false sense of exactly what's going to go on. So I guess my dad did arrive, and I was going to tell this story, Dad, but I'll let you tell it because you spent a lot of money on my very good education from Purdue. Can you hear me? Dad, you might have to turn your mute button off. Maybe.
He should be able to talk.
He might not be able to.
He should be now.
I was trying to mute her because all she wants to do is take over the conversation. What'd you say? It's off mute now. You can talk.
Oh, I'm here? Okay. Well, then you guys can all read I am right. Angela Buchman's laughing. Listen, people, I'm correct, and I'm done with this virtual teaching. So, Angela, are you hiring? Because I'm over it. Okay?
I'm with you.
She has what'd you say, 17-year-old and?
Yep, 17 and 19. So I'm not
19.
really have to teach. And I do feel for, people that have little ones that if I had to teach new math, like I remember my kids learning new math, which I don't know why they changed regular math to new math, I probably would pull all my hair out. Because I never understood it. I'm like, well, why can't you just multiply and divide like I did? Yeah. So if I had to do that, it would be a completely different story. But they're very responsible. They're on their own, and I just make them, which I'm kind of enjoying.
Pretty good too, but I cannot say the same for my 140 students. They can't even answer the attendance question I post every day, let alone do the work.
Oh, geez.
So.
Okay. Back to weather-related comments.
Back to weather. Okay, so my dad, I think he's on here, but maybe he can't hear, or he hasn't unmuted. I'll give him one more chance, and then I'm going to rat him out and tell him the story.
Hey, Angela, are you and your colleagues working from the studio or from home?
No, bless you. I am working from home. They are trying to limit the building with 5 people at a time, which would include a producer that would run the newscast, a director. I don't know if we've put audio on automation or not. 1 person in the studio and an engineer. So they want to keep it to like 5 or 6 people in the station at one time. So we are all working remotely. And I think I'm on my 5th or 6th week, maybe. And I'm going to post it later. Last night was the first time that Mark walked into my shot during the news at 5. Okay, Dad, I'm just going to tell him. I'm going to tell everybody the story. So I was in college, or maybe it was either in college or shortly after grad. No, I must have been in college at Purdue. And there was a tornado. And if you look it up, it's you could probably find the information on the exact date. But it was a summertime. It was a late night, overnight storm, which for a meteorologist is just terrifying because people are sleeping. Well, since I love the weather, I wasn't sleeping. I think I was up watching the Weather Channel. So there was a tornado coming and close to hitting the north side. So I go in and wake up my parents. I'm like, we need to get into the basement. And they look at me and go, you go into the basement. We'll know that it hits if the house is gone or something crazy like that. Well, luckily it didn't hit, but it hit the old Omni Hotel, which was on the northeast side there in Castleton. And I don't even know what the hotel is called now. It might still be an Omni. So it was really close to where we lived. So I tell that story because I still can't believe they didn't get up and they were paying all this money for my really good education. Okay, any last minute questions? Oh, that's a good one. I didn't see that one from Tom. How many Doppler radar stations are there in the state of Indiana? Okay, ooh, you're testing me. We've got the radar at Indianapolis. We've got one in northern Indiana, and we've got one in Evansville. Now we do have, we are able to see some fillers in Illinois that help us figure out what's going on in Illinois that may be coming our way. And then for our eastern viewing area, sometimes we'll use the radar out of Wilmington, Ohio. So I think technically 3 Doppler radars, northern Indiana, Indy, and then Evansville.
Hey, Angela, what's your day like before the 500? Is that your most stressful day? It's probably 24 hours for you.
I would say yes. And now that NBC has the race, it was even more stressful last year because we had the big wigs from NBC calling just about every day, wanting to know what the weather forecast was going to be and if any changes needed to be made. And it's always amazing to me that race somehow always gets in. I have been in the parking lot at 4 in the morning and it is pouring, thunder, lightning, raining. And then for some reason, magically at 1 o'clock, the sunshine comes out and we get the race in. So I always say there's always a chance that race gets in. I think I had one more question. Advice for educating young kids on severe weather without scaring them. That's a good one. I think knowledge is power. And so learning more about the weather sometimes can help kids. I had, my almost 17-year-old, probably until 3 or 4 years ago, didn't really like thunderstorms. And I still don't think she's a fan of thunder. But I think just learning about them. And then the National Weather Service offers spotter classes in the spring. I think they only got to do a couple this year because of everything that's going on, but they are free and they hold several in just about every county. And if you get on their website, toward the end of February, they'll put a list out. And sometimes that might be fun if the kids are old enough to attend a quick conference about learning about how severe weather happens. The folks at the National Weather Service are great. What is Doppler radar and how does it differ from other radar? We had, after the invention of satellite to show clouds, radar was obviously going to be next. And we did have radar early on. Doppler radar just gives us the ability to see motion. So instead of just seeing the rain coming down, the Doppler effect is basically that motion. So it can see raindrops moving in certain directions. And for us, especially in a state that gets tornadoes, being able to see that direction or rotation is very, very important. So that was the enhancement with Doppler radar. And then when dual pol came along 10 or 15 years ago, I can't remember the exact timeline, that's when we're now able to see in the vertical too, with whether it be debris from a tornado, we're able to see it actually flying in the vertical, not just the horizontal. Let's see. Hi, Roger. What's your favorite time of year to follow the weather? Oh, gosh. My favorite weather is sunny and 75. But I would say in terms of forecasting winter, just because it is so hard to figure out how much snow is going to fall. And that's where I think we obviously people at home see most of our errors when we've got a snowfall forecast. So the challenge to get it right in our big viewing area where the northern part of the state may get 6 inches and Marion County may get nothing is probably my favorite just because it's kind of a challenge. Thoughts on people that report in the middle of a hurricane or severe storm? I don't think it's responsible. I think if they were doing it for research purposes, then I think it makes sense because we still don't know why thunderstorms produce tornadoes, why some don't. So any research we can get, I think helps, but just standing there to stand there, I don't think is a very good idea. Did I get everybody? Okay, I think I did. Anything else?
Well, Angela, we've been honored to have you, and out of appreciation, we're going to be making a donation in your name to Teachers Treasures.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely a great resource here in Indianapolis. So again, we know you're busy and can't thank you enough for your time. And I also want to thank Jay Brill, who helped coordinate this. So how about a Zoom round of applause for Angela today?
Thank you. Big thank you to Jay for inviting me. And Jay, I look forward to seeing you up at the lake, hopefully sooner than later when we're allowed to not, be so far apart.
Okay, thank you.
Angela.
Yeah, we also have an Interclub too.
Greetings.
Dan, can you talk about our Interclub today?
I'm hearing a lot of typing.
Sounds like a squirrel is broken into someone's phone line.
Jay, did you have another announcement or?
Greetings. May I speak, Jay?
Sure.
This is Gerslyn Reed Holman from Jamaica, the Kiwanis Club of New Kingston. I know other members are on, but I was listening all along. I just want to say hi, everybody. Greetings and stay safe.
We're honored to have you as well. How is the weather in Jamaica? I'm sure it's very similar to what we're experiencing here today.
Well, probably a little hotter. We are more 80 plus, but it's sunny and dry. Some areas have rain, but we haven't had any recently, so it's very, very hot. And we're indoors, we are staying home, so because of COVID-19, we're not allowed to roam or even to go to our many beaches.
Well, thank you for joining us. When we get back to normal, we'll maybe try to have an in-person meeting down in Jamaica to join
Wonderful.
you. Jay
Love to
Brill
have.
says Jay Brill offered to cover the expenses for all of us to go down there, but we're honored to have you today.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be on.
Great. Before we adjourn, just a couple other announcements. By the way, Angela mentioned anomalies in weather or myths. Another myth is that hurricanes and tornadoes can't emanate from your home. The way my kids have been behaving the last 7 weeks as we're nearing, hopefully, the end point. I mean, we've had multiple storms, and trust me when I say I've been retreating in my basement quite a bit. Okay, final announcements I've got. I sent out the obituary for Joe Marbaugh, and hopefully you got a chance to see that. We're going to miss him quite a bit, and we're going to await word. I think there's going to be some type of celebration of life that his daughters conduct for him. And as I mentioned, we are still looking at ways to honor Joe. The board is, and we'll certainly let you know about that. I noted we had 36 participants on today's call, so that's a tribute to Angela, but I'm also really pleased that we have that many people. That's a really strong turnout, so I hope you will continue to turn out, especially as we have Peter Mancuso, who is the International Vice President. He's the Grand Poobah of Kiwanians, so I hope we get a good crowd for him. And the last thing I would say is, continue to try to reach out to your Kiwani, especially those who may be vulnerable, may be alone right now. If you need the directory, I'll send that out to you. But, pick up the phone this week and call someone. That's what we're here for, is the camaraderie and reaching out to others. So unless there are any other announcements, I'm going to motion to adjourn. Anything else for the good of the order?
Yes, we do have an Interclub from Wawasee. The Wawasee Kiwanis are here. And I don't have the list, but I'm sure that it'll be in our newsletter, the people that attended.
That's terrific.
And this might be the first Interclub, virtual Interclub in our district.
That's wonderful.
Graham, you're doing a great job. So these Zoom meetings are a great idea. Great way to participate. I'm able to make it to the meetings more often, just dialing in without the travel. It's nice to see all of you.
Yeah, we don't have any excuses, right?
No.
Absolutely. Again, the way my kids continue to behave, I do a couple of these every day if you all want to, so I can get away. No, I do love my children. I'm just trying to bring some levity here. Anything else for the good of the order?
Just keep everyone.
Okay. Be safe,
Good.
everybody. Angela, thank you again, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks much.